Very good evening, everyone, and we are delighted to have you here. And we hope this session brings value to your career. We have some amazing insights and an engaging Q&A at the end. So be ready with all the questions you have, and we'll try to pick them in the Q&A. So tonight we are honored to have Suresh, Talent Acquisition Head of India at Genesys. Joining us brings over 20 years of experience in talent acquisition. He leads talent growth and drives diverse, inclusive hiring with a strong focus on employer branding. So welcome Suresh to the session.
Thank you, Divya. Pleasure being part of this session. Thank you to Uplers for giving me this opportunity. Hope all of you are doing well. I know it's a Thursday evening, so weekend is just around the corner. So wishing you all a wonderful weekend. Just to talk quickly about me, I bring about 20 years of experience in talent acquisition. So I started my career in technology like you, and I found my passion into talent acquisition, and I moved into talent acquisition about 16, 17 years ago. I'm going to try my best to share my experience of what it takes to identify the best remote possible opportunities and how you can kind of ace the interview process through it. So hope this session is going to be informative as well as interesting for you. And hopefully you'll all take some pointers back to your job searches and best of luck with that.
Great. So, before we start with the agenda, for the people who have joined the session for the first time, I would like to introduce you guys to our Remote Revolution series. So, at Uplers, our mission is to make hiring and getting hired reliable, simple, and fast. And therefore, Remote Revolution is an initiative wherein we invite speakers from top notch companies like Twilio, GitLab, Atlassian, and many more to share their insights on how these remote companies hire, their process, culture, interview tips, and remote readiness traits required by top global brands. So, moving forward to the session agenda, Suresh will take us through his journey. He'll share insights into his role. He'll talk about the unique culture that shapes Genesis and his experience working with a remote team. Following that, we'll explore the intricate hiring process at Genesis. We'll address the critical questions: what all skills does it take to not only have good opportunity at Genesis, but also to stand out during the selection process at any company. So, welcome, Suresh. Without much ado, let's dive into the session. To start with, tell us something about your career journey and your role at Genesis.
Yeah, thanks again, Divya. So, welcome all to this session. As I kind of gave a quick introduction about me, I started my career in technology like what most of you are or aspiring for. But over 15, 16 years ago, I found my calling into talent acquisition. So I am today heading talent acquisition for a SaaS $2 billion plus software company for our India region. And this role is very close to my heart because it helps us to probably identify the best talent possible, especially in the tech space, and make our products better. So that's a little bit about me. I take a lot of interest in terms of doing volunteering activities, and the areas which are very close to my heart are education industry as well as diversity, equity, and inclusivity. These are some areas that I do a lot of volunteering activities for, and I've had the opportunity to be part of executive development programs in esteemed institutes like IIM Bangalore, and hopefully over the session I should be able to share some insights which you can take back as one of the learnings and then apply it as part of your job searches.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Suresh, for sharing your inspiring journey with us. And I'm sure our participants for the session today would love to have your insights on the hiring process, jobs, and everything. So, anyways, coming back to our agenda, in today's world, landing a remote job is the dream many are chasing. But to make that dream a reality, it's essential to know exactly what recruiters are seeking. What skills should you own to stand out and boost your chances of success? So, Suresh, can you share some tips and tricks which we should work upon before applying for any job?
Absolutely, Divya. I think, as I said, I have about 20 years of experience. So I've seen through different hirings, ecosystems. And today, remote is something that a lot of employers like us are also looking forward. And it takes different skills to interview for remote opportunities. So I'll be more than happy to share my learnings over the years. Let's probably first attack the big question that we have. So when we are looking at remote interviews, a lot of us as candidates make a lot of mistakes that we are not even aware of, right? So these are basically opportunities for great jobs or to be part of great organizations, but unlike a face-to-face interview, remote interviews does not give you a comeback opportunity, because if you make a mistake or if you don't do the things right from the start of the discussion, the opportunity might go out of your hand too. So over the years, when I looked at people being hired remotely, and when I have been part of many of these hiring processes, there are some very critical things that a lot of candidates don't really take it seriously. But in a remote interviewing, hiring process, these are something that needs to be looked into for us to have the better opportunity of getting that job. So let me go through a list of those now. So to start with, one, we don't prepare ourselves, right? Sometimes when we are actually getting into an interview, a lot of times candidates don't have the right preparation that is needed. They don't understand what the job is all about, what the company is all about. So to any interviewer, the very first red flag area is, has the candidate prepared enough about the organization? Have they known enough about the organization? Have they done research about the role? A lot of times we have seen candidates asking interviewers, hey, can you please tell me a little bit about the role? Or when the interviewers ask the candidates, can you please explain the role to us? And the candidates end up saying, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't go through the job description. So these are a lot of big red flags that come when interviewers are interviewing candidates. These are something which are very basic in nature, but these could potentially become a deal breaker when they are trying to hire a candidate. So lack of preparation is one. Sometimes it is important for us to have the right setting, especially in a virtual interview, because if you're sitting in a place which is very noisy, or you don't have the right infrastructure, you would not be able to have the right interview discussion with the interviewer on the other side. And it's a myth that, oh, it's a virtual interview, I can dress anything, right? So it's important that we have the right dressing. It doesn't mean that we have to be wearing suit and when we have these interviews, but some basic level of dressing sense is needed. Just be presentable. We have seen candidates wearing sleeveless t-shirts coming for interviews, or wearing t-shirts which are not normally worn in a professional setup. They think they can still get away with that because it's a virtual interview. Whether it's virtual interview or a physical interview, being dressed adequately for the interview is very, very important. And another important aspect that a lot of candidates don't really focus on is the body language, right? So while it's a virtual interview, you are only seen through a screen. It's important that you demonstrate the right body languages when questions are being asked, because the interviewer is sitting on the other end of the monitor. He or she is not able to really assess your energy or your skills. So, not having the right body language might kind of make it difficult for you to get the right opportunity. Apart from that, it is also important to bring in the energy, because a lot of times candidates don't showcase their energy on the call. And to me, on the side, as an interviewer or the interview panel that we are all part of, we don't see the candidate to have the right energy, because working remotely takes a lot more than working in a physical environment. And you need to be energetic, because you don't have your office or your employer ecosystem to support you through your work process, right? So having the right energy is also very important. And most importantly, a lot of candidates don't know what are the accepted interview practices. Say, for example, if you're having questions when an interviewer is talking, right? And especially if the infrastructure is not great. When I say infrastructure, it could be your bandwidth or your network. Sometimes when the interviewer is talking or you want to ask a question, in normal physical interviews, we are able to see the person face to face, and there is no lag or no gaps in communication. But in a virtual interview, sometimes the interviewer is still talking, and we have our questions, and we keep asking our questions, and that interrupts the flow of the interviewer. So if you have any questions, for example, you can probably use the raise hand button in Zoom and all of these tools. So these are some accepted interview practices. which are very, very important when you're doing virtual interviews. It's always good to do that preparation, understand what are the accepted interview practices when you're doing virtual interviews for you to be better prepared. So with this done, we'll get to the next part of the conversation, which is basically, understanding how you can stand out in terms of a job market today. So today, with a lot of uncertainties and hiring freezes across the organizations, we typically see at least 4-5x more applications coming for any job opportunities that we open today. So as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, as an interview panel, it becomes very difficult for us to kind of identify or go through every candidate's profile. So it kind of, if you really want to have the opportunity to stand out in a crowd, it's like, for example, going to a marriage and being the best dressed person in the marriage hall gives you a lot of attention, right? Similarly, having the right resume and will give you an opportunity to have that conversation with the hiring managers. In fact, a lot of great candidates are not able to land their dream jobs or land the job that they're interested in because they don't even get a audience or a discussion with the hiring managers. So having the right resume will help you cross the first barrier, which is to clear that conversation, a checkpoint, and start having those conversations with the recruiters or the interview panel, so that you're having a higher opportunity of converting that into a job. So let's look at some of those aspects which actually are which makes your resume stand out. A lot of times, we apply for the roles that we are really aspiring for, right? Say, for example, I'll give you a funny instance that whenever we open director engineering roles, which is basically roles where you need about 15-20 years of experience, which is called out in resumes, we see a lot of freshers applying for it. And the best part is their covering letters are so beautifully written, where they talk about their experience, which fits a director engineering role. But that's not always relevant, right? Because you need to probably see what is the role that you're applying for, and is your profile matching to the role that you're applying for. So it's always better not to apply for a role in organizations that you really want to work if you don't see a fit. Because if you continuously apply for roles which you're not a fit, recruiters tend to see a pattern, right? So even if you're applying for a role that's the best fit for you, if you have a history of applying for roles in an organization which doesn't match your experience or your skills, the possibility that the recruiter might overlook your profile is very, very high. So please be very mindful of it. I'm not trying to promote the thought that you only have to apply for the roles that you are doing today. But if you're applying for a role, please look at the opportunity for you to scale up. Is there a potential for you to grow into that role? If the role is something completely different or very, very aspirational that you want to be after, say, 5, 10, 15 years, don't apply for the role right now. So that's a very important part when we start off looking at resumes, which is to apply for the right kind of roles. Second, keep your resumes clean, because on an average, a good recruiter in a good company looks anywhere about 200 to 250 resumes in a given day. So when the resumes are not properly designed, the resume does not have the right fonts, the resume content is everywhere, it doesn't have a proper structure to it. The likeliness of resume the recruiter not giving or reading through your resume is very, very high. So if you really want somebody to invest time in reading your resume, as I said, about 250 resumes to 300 resumes, every good recruiter looks at it in a day. Having a good resume which is clean, designed, well tailored, makes a lot of sense. And also very important, the professional summary. So professional summary in the start of a resume may be a four-liner or five-liner, right? But that five-liner will probably give the opportunity for you to talk what you're really good at. So a lot of people do cut and copy of professional summary from other resumes that they like, because the words or the language that they've used in the other resumes are great. But professional summary has to talk about who you are, right? It's like an elevator pitch for yourself. A recruiter goes through professional summary. If the professional summary is not clear, then they will not invest a lot of time in going through the rest of the resume. So when you're designing your resumes, uh, put professional summary which talks about your experience. Say, for example, if you are a full stack developer working on, say, both front end and back end technologies, your professional summary can say, full stack developer with 5 years of experience working on XYZ technologies. Because when the recruiter looks at it, he or she finds a relevance in the professional summary to the role that you have applied for, then they will further go through, read your resume in detail, and then the possibility of you having a conversation with them increases. So keep your professional summary very crisp, and keep it to the skills that you are trying to showcase as part of your resume. And the other important part is, focusing on your strengths and skills, because a lot of resumes, especially technical resumes, when we receive from candidates, we see about 50, 60 different technologies that they have put in. Any technology, for example, a full stack developer working on an AWS platform, he or she might not have used AWS. Just because the platform is AWS, they'll include AWS as part of the resume, saying they have experience in AWS. So when a recruiter looks at a resume, he finds about 40 to 50 different technologies that are listed. That itself is a red flag for them. So limit the number of skills that you put to what you're good at. If somebody is going to talk about your resume, somebody is going to talk to you, they should be focusing on the skills that you have put in. So do not include skills that you are just learning or you want to learn or you think is very cool in the industry. Keep it to your strengths so that the resume is honest, and it gives you the right opportunity for conversations. Another important thing is, there is a great feature called as a spell check in Word. So a lot of us don't use that. So when you're writing resumes, please, you don't have to have great English. We don't need to have Sashi Tharoor kind of English, but having right, spellings for what we are trying to convey, I think that is very, very important. So please do not write resumes which are very badly written, which has a lot of spelling mistake today. With Word also having AI capabilities, it helps you to correct your grammar, helps you to correct the sentence construction and everything. So please make use of all those features to avoid any missteps, because a resume, if it has a lot of spelling mistakes, if the resume format is not right, uh, people think resume is written shabbily, then that reflects on what you bring on the table as a skill, right? So if I am not well dressed when I go for an interview, people think I'm not qualified for the job. So while you're being dressed is important, similarly you need to also have the right dressing for your resume to promote that professionalism that you're trying to bring on the table. Another important aspect that a lot of people um, know but don't do is doing keyword match in their resume. So, if, for example, I'm trying to apply for a software engineer job, I need to have my resume talk about words which are very commonly used in connection to software engineer jobs, right? Because today, a lot of big organizations get almost, say, 5,000, 6,000 resumes for a single role. For example, in my current as well as past experiences, we have almost received 10,000 applications for one single job posting. So it becomes very difficult for organizations to screen all these resumes manually, right? So what they do, they actually build softwares or buy tools which helps them screen match these profiles. So when these applications like AI tools are being used to screen match the profiles, these AI tools focus on the keywords to create the relevancy on the resumes. So it's important that you understand. I'm not just taking an example of software engineer. It could be any job. You whatever industry you're part of, every role has its keywords that are aligned to that, right? So please try using those keywords as part of your resume. So if there is going to be a automated tool that screens your resume, it is able to pick your resume as a relevant profile because you have all the right keywords which are relevant to you as well as the job highlighted there. Um, Also, another important aspect is using the network to reach the right audience. A lot of candidates I've seen, they want to network with people, but they don't know whom to reach out to. One honest personal experiences, as recruiters and as HR professionals across the organization, we normally don't, recommend candidates or refer candidates because it's like Caesar's wife being above suspicion, right? So we, as a HR, we have a quid pro quo where we will not be, recommending candidates because we are the ones who are managing that particular hiring process. So try not to reach out to HRs or talent acquisition professionals asking them for references, because most likely they will not give you references because that is against the ethics or the values that they bring in from their role. But who can you reach out to for references? References could be somebody who's part of your network. Always look at this as a thumb rule. Start reaching out to people. For example, I have a job that I've identified in a company that is a great company and I want to work for, and the role is absolutely great. But I see reference, this is the best way to go because the company doesn't hire through non-references over the years. Um, First thing first, look at your network and look at people who has worked with you or somebody who can talk about your competency and skills. Because if somebody you're reaching out to has not worked with you or does not know you, just because you're part of the LinkedIn network, it doesn't help because they don't know who you are, right? So always go by the order. Look at somebody who has worked with you. If they can give you a direct recommendation, they are the best set of people. If not, look at people whom you are really know well, and they might have somebody in the organization. Look at them as a second option. Third option, look at people who've studied in your own colleges, because alumni associations or campus bonds are much stronger. Look at people who have studied with you in your school or college. If none of this is applicable for that particular role, then look at people who are actually performing this role in the organization. So if you, for example, want to apply for a role as an HR, there's no point asking a reference for a person who's from a software engineer, right? So whatever role that you're applying for, connect with people with that specific role experience. So when they give references in the organizations, the hiring managers take it seriously because there is a certain level of due diligence that these people always do. If I as an HR refer an HR profile, then the likeliness of that profile getting a serious review from hiring managers is higher. So always look at people as a last option. If you don't have anybody in that organization that you know, always look at people who are performing that role already or somebody who would be able to provide you a reference which is valued within the organization because they know about the role that you're getting referred to. And last but not least, when you are talking about your experiences in your resume and your achievements in resume, talk about personal anecdotes. A lot of us make a mistake of saying, as my team did this, my project team did that. When you're looking at any job opportunities, you're being hired for your own skills, not for what your team did as an achievement, right? So when you're talking about your personal achievements in any organization, look at your personal anecdotes, provide talk in a first person sense. So when you're saying, I achieved, so when you're talking about any achievements in your resume, talk about what is the achievement and what is your contribution in it. A lot of times, recruiters and interviewers find a disconnect because they look at the resume, the particular achievement is very big, and when they start talking to the candidates, they realize that the candidates, contribution to that is only 1% or 2%. It is better to call out that my contribution is only 1% or 2% in your resume, because that at least sets a certain level of transparency and honesty about you. So it's important to bring in anecdotes, but make it as personal as you can. So with this, we'll get to the next part of the conversation, which is basically talking about what are the key skills that employers are looking for while hiring virtual employees? So, over the last 5, 6 years, from my personal experience, the entire hiring ecosystem has changed because with COVID coming in and all of us going virtual and working remotely, our mindset towards hiring has changed. So, whatever was relevant or whatever was the primary skills which was present before COVID, that has significantly gone through a change in the last 4 or 5 years. So some of the important skills that employers are looking for while hiring for virtual employees, one, they are looking for somebody who is able to communicate better. Because in a physical world, when we used to all work together, people can get away with lack of communication skills or having average communication skills. But today, when you're working in a connected world, and a lot of organizations, when they hire remotely, they don't hire only in one country, right? I've seen organizations who actually have only 50 people. All the 50 people are spread across 50 different countries. So that's how diverse the workforce of organizations can be. So organizations look at right communication skills, because if you're going to be working virtual, are you able to communicate your idea? Are you able to bring your ideas and thoughts into the table that other people are able to understand? So communication skill is a very important skill that they look at. Technical proficiency. Technical proficiency can be two different things. One, is the competency of the core skills that you're trying to bring onto the table. But other thing is how proficient are you using in terms of tools and technologies like say Zoom, all these platforms, right? If you're going to work remotely, all your work life you're going to be using all these communication tools, different workforce tools, the productivity enhancement tools to communicate and get your job done, right? So knowing and having good understanding of how these communication mediums and tools work is also something that a lot of organizations today look at. So while you build your core competency, also try to make yourself very comfortable using all these virtual tools. Then comes self-motivated, dependency and independent. Because in a virtual ecosystem, there is nobody sitting with you to mentor you, coach you, handhold you through the entire 9 hours, 10 hours of your work day, right? So when you're working in a remote, on a virtual environment, you have to be self-motivated because people can't keep, track of your productivity. So you need to be self-motivated. So that's the reason a lot of organizations, when they're hiring for virtual employees today, they look for people who are very self-motivated, dependable. Again, when you give commitments, you need to follow through, ensure that the commitments are met. And again, somebody who's independent and able to take all these discussions and calls, on their own. So these are some very important aspects that they look at. And also the adaptability, right? So today you're working in a very flexible and a virtual environment. How flexible and adaptable are you to learn new skills? Because as I said again, our learning systems have completely changed. Prior to going virtual, most of our learning systems were touch and feel, right? So earlier in offices, I don't know how many of you have worked in physical work environment before, but people have worked in physical work environment before. If you have a question, you can always walk up to your colleague's desk, take your laptop, the person will solve the problem to you in 2 minutes. But today, the same problem, if you have to solve over a Zoom or a team, it takes about 30 minutes, right? So it's important that you become more adaptable and you're flexible for learning, because if you don't have the ability to learn, people will start avoiding you. So that's the reason a lot of organizations look at this as a very important skill upfront. Similarly, problem solving. So when you don't have people sitting with you to handhold you when you're working on your own in a siloed environment, are you able to solve problems, or are you always only going with problems where somebody else is providing you solutions? So these are some aspects that you look at it. Again, another important aspect: time management. How good are you in terms of managing your time? Are you able to get your work done, or are you somebody who's um, wasting a lot of time because there's nobody to sit and micromanage you, right? So these are some important aspects that organizations look at. And the best part, if you see, these are about 70-80% of the expectations that the employers today have are not skill related, right? So skill, for example, if I want to today become a Java developer or a software developer, I might not have that skill, but I can develop my skill on communication. I can be better self motivated. I can bring in a can do attitude, time management, collaboration. All these things are something that we can develop because these are soft skills. So if you see today, the importance, while we still give it to skill based hiring, we also give a lot of importance to the other software aspects that people bring on the table. So a good news for everybody is if you're able to keep developing your software aspects, the chances of you clearing these interviews become higher and higher. With this, we'll actually get to the a very important part. Uh, what has changed in 2024? So again, as I said, there are two different eras, right? So I wouldn't say even eras. I would probably call it two different centuries. So though 2020 is part of this millennia, 20 pre-2020 and post-2020 is completely different. So I can talk from my personal experience in one of the organizations when I was working when the COVID hit. So we were wanting to do a pilot of taking 50% of our employees home, test the other 50% to see what is our preparedness. But suddenly COVID hit, and all of us went virtual from day one. So since then, our lives have completely changed. The way we interact with people has completely changed. So when that has changed, the ecosystem of hiring also changed as part of the evolution, right? Today, companies are much better prepared to hire virtual employees than what they were. So as they are much better prepared, their expectations about what they want from employees have also increased. So let's probably look at some of the important aspects that has changed in 2024. One. So I think I briefly touched upon this on earlier because today hiring process has been automated to some extent. And while HR and TA were not the first set of people to adapt AI and automation, that is an area that is seeing a lot of growth and momentum today. So today, a lot of organizations use AI and automation as part of the hiring process. AI and automation can be used right from the time that you're doing screening, right? When you apply for a role, the software does the screening. It gives the recruiter a scorecard saying if 100 candidates have applied for a role, they give a ranking saying out of those 100, which are the top 5, top 10, top 15, etc. So AI automation is playing a very important role in terms of screening the talent. That's why, connecting back to the earlier point, having the right resume is important because you're not trying to engage with a human here when they're screening the resume. It is basically a bot or a system that is doing it. So you need to probably align your resume to get through the first gateway, which is the AI and automation tool. Second, today a lot of organizations, including talent acquisition teams, we have become much more data driven. Earlier, we used to talk about our gut feeling about a candidate. Today, while we still depend, when I say why, I'm talking about the TA, HR, and the hiring managers, we also look at the data. Is there a data to support a hiring like this? Sometimes we also look at the kind of companies they come from, the kind of ecosystems they come from, the education systems they come from, to see if there is a success, possibility of success or failure when we do a hiring. So a lot of data has come in today as part of the hiring, and that's actually making our job easy as well as difficult because today, as a recruiter, as a TA person, we don't have a lot of gut feeling driven decision making. Most of it are very data driven. Then comes the technical skills. I think we already spoke about it earlier, right? Technical skill could be your skills that you bring in as a core competency, or it could be the way you use all these communication tools to make your job much more rewarding and make your job much more effective. And then again, emphasis of soft skills. I think what was soft skills earlier, pre-COVID, was great. As in, importance of soft skills was really high. But post-COVID, that has actually shot up the roof because today you can still get away with having not having great soft skills when you're working in a physical environment. But if you're working in a virtual environment, you will struggle and you will not be a great resource if you don't have the right soft skills. So today organizations have put in a lot of importance on soft skills again. And the next two important aspects are something that is part of the technology revolution today: rise of gamification. So earlier, a lot of these assessments were done manually or done through questionnaires and surveys. Today, a lot of organizations use games, virtual games. In fact, I know a couple of organizations, say, for example, when you apply for a job, uh, and first, the system, that is the AI automation tool, does a screening of your profile. Moment it realizes that there is a match for your profile to the role you've applied for, it automatically triggers out a game link to you. So you go and play that game. So once the game you've played completed, the AI again automates or evaluates your gamification scores, and then they provide recommendation to the recruiters to have a conversation with you. So today gamification is coming while we use PS4s and other Xboxes. Even hiring uses gamification today. And another important intervention that is called as asynchronous interviewing. So, what is asynchronous interviewing? Earlier, interviews were always real time, right? So, we used to set up interviews where the interview panel sits on one side of the interview, you as a candidate sit on the other side of the interview, and have those virtual conversations. But a lot of organizations today use pre-recorded interview, platforms. So you are actually talking to an interviewer, but you're not talking to an interviewer who's live on the other end. So these are pre-recorded, tools or pre-recorded videos that are being used so that we are able to manage the interviews better, and interview process becomes easier. So as a candidate, it is very difficult because unless you are adjusted to that, because you're not talking to a live person. It's basically a recorded message that's coming from the other end. So that's why it's important that you need to develop your skills to probably manage any type of situation that comes. Again, this is something that we spoke about, culture fit. So today organizations are working remotely. They cannot take the risk of having somebody come in the organization does not bring the right culture. So a lot of organizations put importance on culture, and they actually do culture fit discussions as part of their hiring process so that the right candidates are being hired. And the last most important thing, that is flexibility and work life balance. Today, organizations have realized that if you really want to get the best out of your virtual employees, you need to provide them the flexibility, not just to work from home, but ask them to choose the time that they are comfortable working, as long as it doesn't impact your business goals or productivity, and also give them the work life balance so they're able to manage their personal time as well when they are working. So these are some of the key important aspects that have actually come in or kind of making a lot of headway as part of the hiring in 2024. So this is done, and we'll get to the very last part of the conversation, which is okay, everything done. So I know how to prepare my resume. I know what the industry is looking at. I know how I want to present myself in the interviews. But when you actually get to that stage, which is basically let's now we are in a very happy part of the conversation, right? Because we prepared a resume to beat all the AI tools. We prepared the resume where the recruiter felt very comfortable putting us forward for an interview. So we are there in the time where the tire hits the road, right? Rubber hits the road, as we say. So this is what is going to either get you the job or not get you the job. So we will probably look at some interesting or important aspects which will help you create a lasting impression on interviewer. Because today the attention span of any interviewer is very small, because you're not meeting them virtual. Sorry, you're meeting them virtual, not physical. And any missteps that you do at the start of the conversation or through the conversation might become a challenge for you to get the right job or the job that you're aspiring for. So good luck. We are now getting into the interview, and hopefully you will all clear this interview. Let's look at some of the aspects that really helps you to create a lasting impression with your interviewer or any panels that you're talking to. One, respect time and manage it well. So it's important that when you say, for example, have a call at say 7 o'clock, log in 5-10 minutes early, so you are comfortable with the tool. And you when the interviewer joins in, you're already there in the bridge, because that sets the right tone, right? Imagine an interviewer logging in before you, you log in 10 minutes later. So that doesn't give a great impression. So of course, there are times that you will have challenges with network or everything. So if you know there is going to be a challenge, communicate well in advance to the interviewers or the recruiters, saying, "Hey, I'm running late because of this reason, or I have a network issue." So that respects everybody's time. It's better for the interviewer to join 15 minutes late. Have you told them already that you'll be joining 15 minutes late for some reason? Then to have him or her join, wait for you in the bridge for 15 minutes. So respect time and manage it well, and be a research ninja. So when you get to the conversation for the interview, virtual interviews, the best part is you most likely know who the interviewer are, right? So do a little bit of research. While you've already done a great work in terms of researching the company and the job that you're applying for, it's also important to understand the interviewer's personality, right? Say, for example, if you and the interviewer has gone to the same college or university, somewhere during the conversation highlighting that, saying, "Hey, I also see that you're part of so and so college. I also come from that college. I'm an alumni of it." Those things will help you build a better rapport and familiarization. So do a little bit of more research um, about the interviewer, about the kind of companies they have worked for, and that will give you an idea what would be their no hiring mentality. So are they going to be somebody who's going to give you a lot of space, or is the questions going to be very technical? So prepare well in time. Do a lot of research about not just the company and the job, but also the interviewer who's going to be doing this interview for. And third important point, practice, right? Even Sachin did not score those many centuries without practice. So for a genius like him, takes so much practice. Same goes for us when we interview. So please ensure that you prepare well. Do practice. You can do virtual mock interviews with your friends or your mentors through Zoom or whatever platform, right? Because while Zoom, Teams, all these are similar platforms, each of these platforms have slightly different nuances, UI, and everything. So if somebody is going to do a Zoom interview with you and you have not done Zoom interview before, it's always better for you to have a mock interview with somebody whom you can trust, who can give you honest feedback. So You can do the interview, and sometimes we think, we have done great from this side of the interview, but the other person will have a completely different opinion. So please practice well, do a little bit of audition before you get to the interview. And more importantly, be very comfortable in your setting. So if you're probably sitting in a railway station and taking the interview, you're not going to be comfortable, right? So most of these interviews are planned in advance. So find a place that you are very comfortable and you are able to, give your best out, right? So always choose a ecosystem or a medium that supports you then to distract you. Listen actively. Again, virtual interviews, you cannot pick their body language that much. It's basically verbal conversations and what you see as a face on the video. Listen actively. Sometimes the network might be really bad or it might be scratchy. So a very important question, if you have not listened and you end up answering completely different, that again kills your opportunity of that job, right? So listen actively. And yes, there is a possibility that you might not have heard what the question is. If you're not clear, you can always ask the person to clarify so that you understand the question well and then answer it better. And again, energy. See, unlike physical interview, you can't use your hands, your body language, right? Your voice has to communicate that energy that you bring in. The person has to feel so energized. I've been part of a lot of interviews, just to talk about some personal experience here. I've been part of a lot of interviews where people don't bring that energy. I feel very down. I feel very let down after the interview. I feel like my energy is completely sapped. I become a zombie. And there has been also some interviews where I feel completely energized because that person on the other end, if I had about 80% energy, that person took me to 120%. And that person who took me to 120% are the person who are likely to be, clearing those interviews, because you set the stage and you completely made the interviewer wanting to talk to you, right? So bring that energy onto the call, because you have no other medium to express your capabilities or competencies to the interviewer. So energy is what you can bring in best. And more importantly, be graceful, because sometimes we have seen candidates being ungraceful on the call, because it takes a lot of etiquettes. Video etiquettes, virtual interview etiquettes are a little different to our personal or physical interview etiquettes. So be graceful. Sometimes hiring managers might join in late because there could be some challenges, right? And if you see those are situations coming, little be graceful so that you kind of uh, become the bigger person in that entire conversation, and be very authentic, because talking about things that you have not done, and not being boastful about you, all those things are not considered to be great candidate competencies. So be graceful, be authentic, and more importantly, expect the unexpected, because a lot of times when the virtual interviews happen, Zoom don't load, internet drops for you as well as the interviewer, because there is a very high likeliness the interviewer is also doing a virtual interview from home, not from office, right? So these things do happen. So if you all know Murphy's law says the least expected time, things go bad. So there are times that internet will connection will drop, the video quality will get bad. You may have a power cut that was never expected, or you never had power cut in your entire life to that house, but suddenly it happens when you have the interview. Those things do happen. When these things do happen, do not get flustered or get nervous, because if a bad situation happens in the first fifth minute of your call, assuming you have a 1 hour call, post that, if you don't have the right frame in mind, you will not be able to perform well in the interview. So when you're getting to any interview, prepare for the best, but expect the worst, so that you are able to manage those situations much more gracefully, and then don't let your balance slip. So you're able to give your best as part of the interview. So that's primarily some of the learnings that we have had about, or I have kind of learned over the years, being part of the interview panels, hiring for candidates, etc. So hopefully this was something which was interesting for you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing these pointers. So, I think it will definitely help our audience. So, now let's move to the next part of the session. So, one of the first thing that anybody would want to know before applying for a job um, at any organization is to know about the company, its overall standing in the market, and its culture. So over to you, Suresh. Please tell us something about Genesis as an organization.
Absolutely, Divya. And I'm always an ambassador for Genesys because just a quick introduction. A lot of people might not know about Genesys because we are primarily a B2B company. So, just to give you some important data points about us, we are a market leading company which focuses on customer experience and contact center solutions. We have a revenue over $2 billion. We are a company headquartered in US. Our overall employee strength is about 7,500 and more than 700 people work out of India. And so we have customers in over 100 countries. So basically, that's the kind of footprint that we have. So every big country or every sizable country that you can think of, we have presence. We have customers working in those countries, and our products. Last year, when we did analysis, about 80 billion customer experiences we were able to manage through our Genesis platform. That's more than 10 times of the world population today, right? So that's the amount of data, customer experience data that flows through our platform. So while we might not be a known company in the hiring space because we are not a B2C company, we are a big player in what we do and we are the market leader. In fact, we are the pioneers in a space called as experience as a service. So that's a little bit about Genesis as an organization.
Great, thank you for sharing that. And we have few other slides. So- Okay, so we are running out of time. So Suresh, I would like you to just tell us about the culture and values at Genesis. A quick brief would work.
Sure. So, as I said earlier, we are a customer experience company, right? So, experience in what we do to our customers is very key. So, similarly, our DNA talks about experience of our employees. So, anything that we do today as an organization, we keep our employees at the center of our business processes. So, as an organization, we have been ranked as a great place to work for eighth consecutive year in India. And this year we are ranked as a 34th best company among the mid-sized companies in India. So that tells a lot about our culture. And our values, we don't complicate our values. We have a very clean and a very simple value. One, embrace empathy. So as part of Genesis, everything, everywhere you see, we are very empathetic. So anything that we do, be it customer or be it internal employees, we always are empathetic and we embrace that as one of our key values. Fly in formation is basically you will not be able to achieve success unless you are able to work together. So that's a second important core value that we have. Third, while we are an organization which is in the market for more than 2 3 decades, we are still an organization which is young at heart. So we always aspire to go big. And as I called it out earlier, we are a market pioneer in what we do. So we are very ambitious and we want to really not just create products, but create products which completely transform the industry that we operate in.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. So, people, we are moving to the next slide, and any questions you guys have around all the slides we have discussed till now, you can just type in the chat box, and we'll cover it. So, now in this slide, we'll be talking about the interview process. So, over to you, Suresh.
Thanks again, Divya. So this is where the real fun part begins, right? What do we do as interviewers? So we hire across different types of talent in our organization. We hire for freshers out of campus. Typically, when we hire for freshers or campus hires, we have an online assessment that they go through. Once they clear an online assessment, then there is a technical interview, then there is a manager interview. And the last, I or one of my senior members from the team do an interview to assess them from a culture point of view before we hire. This is for freshers. And after freshers, we also hire for lateral talent. Lateral talent, we have technical interviews that may be say 1 to 3 rounds of interviews depending on the skill or the team that being hired for. Then there will be a leadership discussion that happens from one of the BU leaders of that team that is hiring. Then we have a TA leadership discussion to finalize the candidate before we roll out a formal offer. So if you are somebody who's a senior candidate or a leadership candidate, the process is slightly similar. However, there's a lot more emphasis on leadership discussions. While we assess you on your technical capabilities, there is also a lot of leadership discussion that happens as part of our interview process to see if you are somebody who's culturally aligned to an organization like ours, and are you able to promote what Genesis as a culture is known for? So we do a lot more leadership discussions before we get to an offer stage. And then comes the most important part, right? What are we currently having as a hires? What do we hire for? So we are an R&D organization in India. So most of our hires are technical hires. We hire for software engineers. See, this is a list of active jobs that we currently have both in Uplers as well as a career page. We are hiring for a full stack developer. Then we are hiring for a data engineering senior manager. We're hiring for principal data engineers, AWS developers, solution consultants, etc. These are some of the roles that we are actively hiring for. And any point of time when you go to our careers page, you'll always find roles which are similar in nature. So if you are a tech person and if you're interested to work for Genesys, then keep looking out for our career pages for any new opportunities that fits your role. If you are not currently seeing anything that fits yours, and then of course, other than this, we also hire for say some of our non-tech roles like say course developers, purchasing analyst, revenue assurance manager, analyst, etc.
Great. So thank you so much, Suresh, for giving us a glimpse of what the interview process at Genesis looked like and what to expect. So that's a lot of information and some real gem of career advice for the job seekers. And I'm sure our audience would find the information very helpful in their career journey. So that's the end of our presentation, and now we open the floor for Q&A. We already have some questions people have DM'd me, so I'll just pick it and ask to you. So, our first question is, we see different site for resume creation. What is the ideal format which can easily go through first AI screening check? Should it be simple or T-shape and so on? Like, how should it be?
Okay, wonderful question. If you are trying to beat an AI, the best way to do it is by not inserting images. I've seen people using their experiences put in as an image format in resumes. Don't do that. Use text-based content, because when AI screens through resumes, it's easier for it to screen with the text-based content than image-based content. So keep it less on images, more on content, so you're able to get through the AI or any of the screening automation tools.
Great, thanks for answering that. So we have another question, which is, somebody has 5 years of experience but did not graduate with. So will there be any obstacle while applying for jobs?
Okay, that's again another interesting question. Hiring ecosystem today is moving from job-based hiring to skill-based hiring. While there are still some organizations which may want you to have a degree to apply for their opportunities, but today a lot of organizations, some of the big players, without naming them, they don't look for degrees anymore. So they look for competencies and skills. Yes, there are a lot of organizations that hire for people without degrees. If you have the right skills, you will always be able to find a great opportunity in the industry today. So yeah, good luck for you on that.
Thanks for answering that. So we have another question, which is how to negotiate a notice period current company and for the new company.
Okay, so that's a tricky question, right? Because a lot of organizations are not very, open to let their employees go earlier than their notice periods. I'll start the question with answering how do you negotiate with your current employer? See, a notice period today is basically an opportunity for you to complete the tasks that you have in hand, right? So if you have accepted an offer, and let's assume you have a 90-day notice period, it is important that you are able to showcase professionalism through the notice period process and see how soon you're able to complete your transition process. For example, if there is somebody that needs to be replacing you, right? If, for example, you already have somebody who is going to take over from you, the faster you do the transition and get the person up the learning curve, then the opportunities are going to be higher. But if you don't have an internal employee to replace you, if your company has to hire from the market, help the company by identifying the right talent. If you have people through your network, provide them references so they're able to hire. So how you are able to manage your transition process, either by bringing the person up the learning curve or helping the organization hire, that creates a positive momentum for you, and your organization will be much more open to letting you go earlier than whatever your on paper notice period is. How do you now comes the question, how do you address or handle a situation with a potential employer? The best way is to provide them with honest and transparent information, because the biggest red flag to any hiring organization is you tell them that during the interview process you tell them that, hey, I can join your organization in 1 month, but then after interview when they're releasing an offer you say my notice period is 3 months. Be very honest, be very authentic to them. If you have a 3 months notice period, tell them you have a 3 months notice period, but also tell them that you would try your best to negotiate on the notice period to join earlier. Honesty is the best policy. There are, of course, going to be companies which might be hesitant to take a candidate who has a 3 months notice period, but there is enough and more companies for you to get hired as long as you're being honest and has the right credentials. So don't worry about it. Just be honest with the potential employer about your notice periods.
Great. We have another question, which is sometimes in remote interviews, um, the interview is only like audio only. Then how can we manage it?
Uh, yeah, that's actually a tricky question, but it's always good to ask this question. So first, I'll give you a very simple technique. When you're getting into an interview, you have your video turned on. So, say for example, the interview starts at 7 o'clock, right? You log into the interview bridge at 6:55, and have your video turned on. The moment the interviewer comes into the interview bridge, he sees you on the other side of the screen, right? A lot of interviewers take that as a cue, saying, "I have other person has turned on the video. It is, a decency from their part to turn the video on." So most of the interviewers turn the video on. If there are some interviewers, don't turn the video on, you can politely ask them, not right away when the call starts, but give them a few minutes once you do the introduction and everything. You can just politely say, "Hey, it'll be great if I can see you," because I think I'm much more energetic when I see the person on the screen on the other side. Just tell them politely. A lot of interviewers turn the video on when you ask them this question, but there is always going to be situations where the interviewer is not turning the video on. This is where we fall back to the strategy of expect the unexpected, right? So in those cases, don't let that thing really derail you from your interview process. Focus on your strengths that you're able to put it on on as part of the interview process.
Great. So another question, which is in the continuation of the previous questions. So if by any unavoidable reasons we join the interview through our mobile, so how it affects, like, is it okay to do so?
Okay. See, there could be situations where you may have to join through mobile, but let okay. Typically, a recruiter will be coordinating with you as part of the interview process, right? So, I'll give you a simple scenario. For example, I'm traveling and I'm on a personal travel, and then I don't have access to laptops, and there is an interview that's being scheduled for me. So, what I'll do is I'll tell the recruiter, "Hey, I'm on a personal travel. Right now, I will only be able to join through a mobile. I don't have a laptop to join." Ask them honestly if this interview needs a laptop or a tab to join from. Because a lot of times, what happens is if you are applying for a software job, you may require to do a little bit of whiteboarding on the interview, right? So check with them first if this is okay to join a conversation from a mobile. For example, if you're doing a HR conversation, you might not require a laptop because you won't have to do any whiteboarding or problem solving on the screen. But if it's a technical interview, then you might have to, right? So check with them. And if in case the interview requires a laptop or a much more sophisticated infrastructure, you can always request to reschedule the interview when you have access to it. An interviewer will appreciate you being honest and rescheduling the interview because you don't have the right communication medium, then to take a call on your mobile or do this video interview on the mobile and then don't have the right communication. Here communication really helps. Be very transparent, check with them what is the need. Based on the need, you can always decide to take the call over your mobile or postpone it when you have access to a laptop or the other infrastructure that's needed.
Great. So we have one more question which is asked by many people. So let's pick that question, which is about career gaps. So a lot of people have career gaps. So how can we hide it in our resume, or maybe is there any kind of biasness for this among the hiring managers because of this career break?
Okay, so the moment you start hiding it, it only complicates the matter, right? So when you're trying to hide even a genuine career gap, a lot of organizations become suspicious, thinking why this candidate is trying to hide the career gap. So please do not try to hide your career gap because that's going to, impact your interview process negatively than positively. Yes, we all understand today career gaps. Say, for example, in Genesys, a couple of about 6 months ago, we ran a program called as Return to Workforce. That initiative was primarily focused on people who have taken career breaks. Career breaks could be because of job layoffs, or it could be because somebody have left the workforce to take care of their families, or in a lot of cases, women who got married or had kids and they have taken a break to take care of their children and everything, right? Organizations are much more open today to bring people back into corporate because we realize that there is a huge workforce that is going to add value to our organization if we are able to provide them an opportunity to come back to the ecosystem. So do not try to hide your career gaps. Be as open as you are while you're taking career gaps. An important point that a lot of organizations look at is, um, are you stagnating through your career gaps? If somebody has taken a break 5 years ago, have you upskilled yourself? For example, you were a Java developer 5 years ago. From then till today, have you learned any new skills? Have you done any certifications? Try to invest your time on building those necessary skills that is relevant to today than what it was 5 years ago when you left the industry. So that is important. And most importantly, there is always going to be bias in some organizations or some hiring managers because they have their own personal biases. But India is still a very big market and you will always have great opportunities. So don't worry about people's personal biases. You just focus on what's best, and just keep upskilling yourself as even if you've taken a break. I've taken a break personally myself. I've done three transitions in my career. I was into technology, then into investment banking, then into talent acquisition today. If you have the right skills, right attitude, you'll always be able to find your dream job. So don't worry about career breaks. Don't try to hide it first. The moment you hide it, that is where all things go wrong.
Great. So we have a question which is very different and interesting. So, what reason to be given for working remotely? People suggest do not give health issues. The reason. So, how to answer that?
See, again, that's a very subjective question because I don't want to give a reason that is not genuine to me, right? So as long as you have an answer which is genuine, please go ahead and give it. It could be because you have your family, or say women, they can't relocate from one city to another city. I'm just giving an example because you have your spouse working, and if you have kids, they're going to school, you can't relocate them completely. Just be honest with your reasons, and as long as it is reasonable, people will appreciate that. You tell them there is a health issue, then they realize the reason or the motivation for you to work remotely is completely different. Then you lose the trust there. So do not try to give answers which is not genuine. Again,
Great. So
there will be
let's
companies which will not hire you. That's okay. There are enough more companies to hire you.
right. So let's pick the last question for today, which is what is the best approach to answer when recruiter ask expected salary before taking interview?
Okay, there are a lot of tips that are being available on YouTube for this question, but I'll try to answer or give my own twist to this. Um, See, when one thing that I've seen a lot of candidates, when I as a recruiter, because by job I am a recruiter, right? Though I lead teams, I'm still a recruiter at heart. One answer that always keeps coming from the candidate is, "Oh, I'm because my expectation is XYZ because that's the market." So the question is, what is market? So there's no market, right? How did you arrive at a certain assumption that this is your value in the market? So always come up with a reasonable request. Of course, there are going to be companies, organizations I've worked. We have given 10% hike. We have also given 120% hike because there are certain benchmarks that we operate in the organizations. So when you're starting the interview process, you don't have to ask for an exact salary, but ask the recruiter what is the salary range that this role offers. Because if you are already on the higher end of the salary range and you're expecting a 30-40% to come from there, it is not going to happen, right? So you might as well save your time and the interviewer's time by asking a very honest and a very transparent question. Can you please tell me the range? Because I want to ensure that we are aligned in the interview process. But when you are talking to any recruiter, and again, the salary negotiation or your expectation depends on what is the demand supply for this particular situation, right? If you are holding a skill which is very easily available, and supply is high, demand is low, then you will not have the negotiation power. But if you are holding a skill which is very low in supply, high in demand, then you have the negotiation power. So first, understand where your skill matrix falls. Is it high supply, low demand, or low supply, high demand? So that will help you to kind of have a control over your negotiations with the recruiters.
Great. With this, let's end this session. And thank you so much, Suresh. I know we have a lot of questions which are not answered, but I'm sure we'll be sending our community link with Suresh, and he'll join it. And you guys can ping your questions there. And I'm sure whenever Suresh will get time, he'll answer it. So thank you so much, Suresh. Your insights have been invaluable, and we want to express our sincere gratitude for generously sharing your time to contribute to the growth of our community. We truly appreciate your efforts. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for being part of this session, Divya and Uplers. And hopefully, some of the insights I shared will help at least few people who are part of this conversation to reshape their career goals. Thank you again.
Great. So we have few next steps. So for more such sessions, you can just register on Uplers. You will get a lot of openings over there. You can visit website and check what all things relevant to your skills are there. You can join our Discord community. We post many content over there which can be very helpful for you guys, and you can join our WhatsApp group where you'll get the update for the upcoming sessions. So thank you so much, everybody, and stay tuned for updates, and we'll share the recording and everything on social media. So we eagerly anticipate hosting more sessions for you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Bye bye.